Hey, it's Andrew here. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about Social Security changes, the next two stimulus packages, and daily news updates as well. Some people will be getting back paid stimulus payments, so stick around for that. We're going to discuss whether or not you qualify. President Biden is also set to announce his budget proposal, which will have a massive impact on stimulus as well. At the same time, the Republicans have offered a counteroffer to Joe Biden's American Jobs Plan, which may include some stimulus as well. So we're going to talk about all of this in this video, but before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I also have a second channel, so if you could do me a huge favor, click on the link that's in the description of this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my second channel. It really helps me out. I'm actually going to be giving away a stimulus check on that channel just to say thank you for supporting my work. Now, before we jump into things, I just want to point out exactly what is happening today. President Biden is expected to announce his budget proposal, which essentially lays the groundwork not only for the next two stimulus packages, but also for Social Security benefits, for Medicare expansion, and basically anything that the government will be spending money on. So this will have a massive impact on you, especially if you're on benefits or Medicare. The proposal will present an overall fiscal picture, including spending on programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which were not included in Biden's preview back in April. So after Biden makes this announcement, we should have a lot more details as to exactly what he wants to spend on Social Security, including potentially that $200 per month stimulus boost, increased benefits across the board, a larger COLA adjustment, more money for widows, more money for people who have been on benefits for 20 years, and a larger minimum benefit that is 125% of the poverty level, which would lead to almost $200 per month extra for the majority of people who are low income. So this is going to be a massive announcement, and we should find out later tonight, so I'm going to keep you updated on that as well. Now, at the same time, we have Biden who wants to pass his first stimulus plan, which focuses on jobs and infrastructure, his second stimulus plan, which focuses on social spending, like more child tax credits, more affordable health care, and potentially more spending for Social Security and Medicare as well. Now we have Republicans counteroffering with a bill that would be half the price of what Biden wants to spend. Biden wants a $2 trillion package for jobs and infrastructure, and Mitch McConnell and Republicans just counteroffered with $928 billion, about half of what Biden wants to spend. Now, Biden did come down to about $1.6 to $1.7 trillion, so now we're about $600 billion apart. Now, Republicans are saying we can't raise taxes, so we can't spend that much because we can't raise taxes, otherwise we're going to collapse the economy. Now, I want to give some context here. There is actually a lot of data showing two things. First of all, the economy is currently growing faster than it has in the last 40 to 50 years. So Biden is saying with economic growth being so strong and interest rates being so low, this is the time for the US government to take out debt. Now, guys, let me know in the comments if you agree. I know debt is a very controversial topic when it comes to the government. Some people think the economy will completely collapse at some point if we keep taking out debt. Other people, like Biden, say, you know what? Interest rates are so historically low that right now is the time to reinvest in our community. And personally, I agree with that. Also, Republicans do not want to raise taxes. That is one of the main reasons they want to keep these next two stimulus packages small. But there is actually a lot of data showing that over the last 50 years, raising taxes on the rich actually does not slow economic growth. And on the contrary, lowering taxes on the middle and lower income actually increases economic growth even further, right? Now, one of the main ways we measure economic growth is GDP, which stands for Gross Domestic Product, and is essentially just the total dollar amount of the goods and services that the U.S. provides or creates. Now, Republicans for the longest time have believed in trickle-down economics, cutting taxes for the rich, and then letting that extra money funnel down into the economy. Now, that has been shown not to work. And actually, data from the last 40 years has shown that lowering taxes on the middle and lower income actually increases GDP exponentially. A 1% GDP tax cut for the bottom 90% of earners actually increases GDP by 6.6%. But doing so for the rich does not do so, because when you cut taxes on the rich, they actually don't funnel that money back into the economy. They just save it, they put it in the stock market, they put it into real estate, and none of it actually flows into the economy. All it does is make the rich richer. We actually have data on your screen, 40 years of data showing that this is the case. So this actually supports Biden's plan to tax the rich, lower taxes on the middle and lower income, and spend more money on stimulus. Now, a lot of Democrats are pushing Biden to just abandon Republicans and go ahead and do these next two stimulus packages through budget reconciliation, just like they did the last stimulus package, which would not require a single Republican vote. Now, Joe Manchin, I'm sure you've all heard the name at this point, does not want to go through budget reconciliation. Now, with that said, there's still a good chance that Democrats eventually will land on budget recon in order to get this done. But for the sake of bipartisanship, Biden continues to try and do this with Mitch McConnell and Republicans. He basically is saying he's going to give them a couple more weeks. If they don't come to a deal, he's going to move to budget reconciliation is the most likely outcome. Now, let's take a look, see where negotiations stand today. But before we do, let's quickly talk about back paid stimulus. Now, that unemployment tax refund. Let me know in the comments if you received unemployment in 2020. You're going to get that tax refund up to $10,200 of income, which will now be tax-free. I'm sure at this point you've heard of this stimulus. It's going to provide between $1,000 and $3,000 in back paid stimulus checks for anyone who paid taxes on unemployment benefits last year. Now, the IRS is extremely behind, and almost nobody has received their unemployment benefit return yet. Now, with that said, the IRS has said that we do expect these checks to come out sometime in the next 90 days. Unfortunately, there is no way to track this yet, and there is no exact estimated payment date. But if you were on unemployment last year and you paid taxes on those benefits, there is a good chance you're going to get between $1,000 and $3,000 in back paid stimulus payments, depending on what your tax bracket was. So I will keep you posted as soon as we have any updates on specific payment dates for these back paid stimulus payments. I'll keep you posted, so don't forget to subscribe. So let's take a look and see where negotiations stand today. Biden is currently negotiating on the first stimulus package with Republicans. Now, I know this first one, the American Jobs Plan, is focusing on infrastructure. It's not going to have too much stimulus for the people, but it is going to have affordable housing and funding for care workers to provide more care for the elderly as well. So that's actually going to help a lot of people who watch my videos. Now, Mitch McConnell and Republicans provided a counteroffer, which basically takes out the affordable housing, takes out the funding for home and healthcare workers, but leaves in place the majority of the physical infrastructure spending. So we don't want that. We want this affordable housing funding to stay in this package that will actually help a lot of you pay your rent through stimulus. So let's take a look, see what's going on with negotiations, how this might affect Social Security benefits, and even the next stimulus package as well.
Earlier, President Biden is set to unveil a historic $6 trillion budget proposal for 2022 later on today. The administration is looking to spend big in hopes of transforming the economy and education while also supporting President Biden's infrastructure and families plans. But the proposal is just the beginning. Congress will have the final say on what gets passed. So joining me now to talk more about what's in the proposal is CBS News White House reporter Catherine Watson. All right, Catherine, this comes with a hefty price tag. What more do we know about this new budget proposal, and what does it say about where the administration's priorities are?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, we do expect these two key pieces, these two key economic plans from the president to be a big part of his proposed budget. That would be the American Jobs Plan, which is his infrastructure plan, and the American Families Plan, which would essentially expand the social safety net, as well as provide opportunities for free preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds and 2 free years of community college, among other things.
So free college is one thing that Biden really has not come through on his promise. On the campaign trail, he promised at least $10,000 student loan forgiveness. He has not really come through on that, but he does want to include, going forward, free preschool and 2 free years of free community college. He's actually on the record as saying He wants to do something with college, but he doesn't think kids should be able to go to private schools that charge $40,000 a year and have that paid for by our tax money. Now, on that point, I honestly agree. We need some kind of funding for college, and we do need some student loan forgiveness, but paying $40,000 a year from our tax money so someone can go to some fancy private school is not okay. And guys, let me know in the comments if you agree.
Expecting that to be somewhere in the ballpark of about $4 trillion in loan. At least that is so far what the president has proposed. Now, of course, the White House is still, and Democrats are still negotiating with Republicans about the size of that infrastructure package. But that's certainly something we can expect to see. A White House official told my colleague Sarah Cook yesterday another thing we can expect to see in the president's budget proposal will address the cost of health care, looking at the price of prescription drugs, something the president would like Congress to address and like Congress to lower, as well as strengthening the Affordable Care Act and addressing Medicare coverage, expanding coverage and benefits. So that's something we can expect to see, as well as a little something that.
Okay, so although we're still not sure if Biden's going to include Social Security spending in this proposal, we do expect them to have Medicare expansion to include those who are 60 years and older, as well as vision, dental, and hearing care. And we also expect them to try and put something in this bill that will lower prescription drug prices. And guys, let me know in the comments if you spend a ridiculous amount on prescription drug costs. Those costs have skyrocketed over the last 20 years, and it's something that Biden and specifically progressive Democrats want to address. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, they've all been on record pushing Biden to get these drug costs down, which would allow our seniors to live a retirement of dignity and not be forced to waste 30 to 40% of their income just on prescription drugs. So this is a really good thing that we do expect to be in this next budget proposal. And again, this budget proposal is basically an outline that Biden is preparing for Congress, and many of these things will end up in the next two stimulus packages.
It's called discretionary spending, other types of spending. So we are expecting this to be a very large budget proposal, and we will be getting the details later today. But those are some of the top lines of what we know so far.
So, with these budget proposals, pretty much an administration throws in, everything that they kind of want. It's got sort of a dream wish list. The expectation is they don't get everything they want. But, how are Republicans expected to respond to what is presented to them, their willingness to support the proposal?
Probably not well. I think that's already a safe bet to say. We've already seen, of course, Republicans balk at the size of Biden's previous packages, or at least the ones he has previously proposed, certainly his infrastructure plan, which Republicans are currently negotiating on and unwilling to really go above $1 trillion at this point, which is higher than where they were before. So that's one key sticking point. The American Families Plan is honestly probably likely to have, at least that part of his proposal, less support from Republicans. At least parts of the infrastructure package are things that they can agree with. So we're certainly expected to see some friction there. And then, of course, there's just the overall price tag of this proposal, which is reportedly $6 trillion, which would be historically huge, for lack of a better term. And I think we can absolutely expect Republicans to balk at the overall price tag there. We're looking at a national debt that's $28 trillion. We have a significant deficit. So these are certainly some aspects that Republicans are going to have concerns with. Now, of course, a president's budget, and this is Mr. Biden's first budget, is just a blueprint. As you noted, Congress will do what it wants, come up with its own ideas of what it thinks are necessary. But it really does lay out the president's priorities for his first term in office. And I would also add, the White House won't say this, but it is key that for the White House and for Democrats that now is the time to spend big in their minds, because quite frankly, Democrats control the White House, the Senate, and the House. And that isn't an opportunity that every president has. So progressives in particular are going to push that a bit more spending happen now while they have some guarantees on who is in control of Congress versus upcoming years when we don't really know exactly what that will look like.
Really, really good point because the midterm elections are just about a year away. I know that seems really quick, but a year from now, if Democrats don't get their stuff together, if they don't come through on Social Security benefits, on Medicare expansion, and other things they promised, they're going to lose the senior vote. And that means that most likely they're going to lose those midterm elections. And at that point, if they're not controlling the Senate and the House, our chances of getting more stimulus completely plummets. We need stimulus approved this year. Otherwise, Democrats are going to lose the Senate and potentially the House as well. And then we're looking at the last 2 years of Biden's administration, most likely having zero stimulus approved. So, bottom line here, more stimulus now will probably lead to Democrats winning the midterm elections in 2022, which would then lead to even more stimulus later. So, really crucial time right now with these negotiations. And if Democrats are not able to get a deal done with Republicans, they're going to have to move forward with budget recon, and they're going to have to convince Joe Manchin to get on board and vote for this budget recon bill to get this at least infrastructure package done, so then we can focus on the American Families Plan, which will have more direct stimulus payments, including that monthly child tax credit and potentially Social Security stimulus and Social Security benefit increases as well.
You talked about the price tag. Just give people sort of a concept. Former President Trump's proposal for last year was 4.8 trillion. So this is a lot bigger. And even some Democrats might be a little concerned. How is the White House justifying this amount of spending?
Sure, that's a great question. Well, for one thing, the White House, the administration will point to low interest rates as now being the time to spend, now being the time to go big. Another thing that I just mentioned, although the White House really probably doesn't want to talk about this up front, is that Democrats control the White House, the Senate, and the House. And next year is an election year, is midterm elections. We don't have any guarantee. The Democrats don't have any guarantee. Republicans don't have any guarantee on who is going to control those chambers. So now is a time when Democrats see, hey, we control everything. We'll try to negotiate, but let's get as much passed as we can is kind of their thinking here. So those are a couple of key elements. And of course, we are just coming off of a huge crisis, a huge health and economic crisis in our country's history. And Democrats are saying, hey, now is the time for us to spend big in order to create jobs. Let's, in order to try to decrease the unemployment rate and address really the significant economic challenge that we've all been through over the last year. So those are the reasons that we can expect the White House to give on why this package is so large. And I would note, too, you mentioned former President Trump's 4.8 trillion, I believe, budget proposal last year. That was very large at the time, and there were conservatives who said that that was far too much government spending. So we can certainly expect to see concerns from Republicans and from some moderate Democrats likely.
Okay, guys, so we basically have a perfect storm to have more stimulus approved. Now let's recap. First of all, we have Democrats in control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, something they need to take advantage of to win the midterm elections in 2022. And if you guys remember those elections in Georgia, Democrats promised a third stimulus check in order to win that election, right? So what do you think is going to happen next year when the elections are coming up and Democrats want to maintain control of the Senate? Now, most likely, they're going to promise even more stimulus checks, if that kind of makes sense, right? If it worked last year, it'll work next year as well. Not only that, we have historically low interest rates, which means the government is in a good position to take on more debt with interest rates being so ridiculously low, and we have historic economic growth. This year, we have the largest and fastest economic growth that we've had in the last 40 to 50 years. So with those three things combined, I truly believe we have a perfect storm to have more stimulus approved. Now, the first step is getting this infrastructure bill done. Currently, Republicans want to essentially take out the home care funding and the affordable housing funding, leave everything else in place, and pass this on a bipartisan level. Now, this could do one of two things. First of all, it could honestly screw people who need the affordable housing funding. Essentially, you could get your housing paid for the rest of the year if this infrastructure plan is passed with affordable housing funding included. There is a chance that agreeing with Republicans now could actually lead to more stimulus later because of Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin really wants to get a bipartisan deal done because the state where he is a senator in is really moderate. So if Joe Manchin runs around approving all this stimulus through budget recon, there's a good chance he's going to lose his Senate seat in the next reelection. But if we can get this infrastructure bill done on a bipartisan level, then Joe Manchin might be more agreeable to using budget reconciliation once again, because he can tell his voters, hey, we did this with Republicans, now we're going to do this with budget recon. We're doing a little bit of both. We're not just going progressive and doing everything through budget recon, if that kind of makes sense. Basically, Joe Manchin is trying to thread the needle of approving more stimulus, but at the same time making his conservative constituents happy as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, guys. Republicans are on the clock. Biden said he's going to give them a couple more weeks, but not too long into June, he's probably going to move forward with budget recon, at which point they'd get this first stimulus package done. Then we can focus on the American Family Plan, which will have more direct stimulus payments included. So guys, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting my work. It really means the world. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share this channel with anybody who you think might find this helpful. I will keep you posted on the next two stimulus packages, Social Security changes, and daily news updates as well. So until the next video, take care and have a great day.